lackadaisical moral background. He don't want us to be free. 6 p.m. Jared and Jennifer Bowers are having dinner with Brent Clark and his day at the Spirit Club. Dinner was T-bone steak, baked potatoes, asparagus, and a choice of water, tea, or soft drinks. Jared and Jennifer picked a Sprite. 7 p.m. Bishop Owen Breitling gave the Sunday evening devotional about how to keep the Sabbath day holy. 8 p.m. Jared and Jennifer sit down and talk at the entrance fountain by Sneed Hall. So what are you doing this summer? Jennifer said. Well, you know, back in November, I thought, I heard the Lord, and He wants me to have an internship with my dad in Washington, D.C., Jared said. You know, after having that crazy lunch with Charlie Nation, it's good to be with a sweet girl like you. And I just know that all kinds of opportunities are out there for you, Jennifer. All you have to do is to find an open door. I know. My parents want me to go to summer school. But I think I'm going to get a special internship with the Heritage Foundation. That was my first choice. Then out of the blue, Dad says he was seeking this appointment with the Clinton administration. And he wants me and my cousin Joe to come work with him in D.C. as speechwriters. Bill Clinton, what a joke. You know, I was a fool to vote for him in the first place, Jared said. 8:30 p.m. Jared and Jennifer go into the snack bar to grab a couple of drinks and sit and talk. 10 p.m. Jared is back in his room and finds out that Kevin McDonald is fresh back from the library. They talk about Jared's date with Jennifer Bowers. February 1st, 3:20 a.m. Back at the ranch, in Kyle's double-wide trailer, Andrew wakes him up crying for the third time. This time, Madison goes ahead of him to hold her 3-week-old son. Meanwhile, at the ranch house, Elizabeth comes downstairs, suffering from abdominal cramps. She heads to her tonic, and then afterwards turns on country music videos. Sammy Kershaw's Queen of My Double-Wide Trailer is on TV. Elizabeth lights a cigarette and asks Arnie, the inside house men, to put up a fire in the fireplace. 4:20 a.m. Jared wakes up and puts on his headphones to listen to the radio. The Andrew House Minute comes on. This afternoon, President Clinton is going to be nominating David Patrick for Associate Attorney General for Civil Rights. No doubt to me, this appointment has Hillary's fingerprints all over it. He thinks about the past few days. Brad was still not answering his phone calls. Today, he was having breakfast with Andrew Shelford at Crockett House. After classes, he would have lunch at the Student Union with Antonio Gomez and Bill Holden. Fortunately for JR, Bill had moved on from obsessing over Karen Crowder and began dating Amanda DeSantis. 5 a.m. JR is at swimming practice alone. Jars of clay and for him are being piped into the swimming pool. Meanwhile, Kyle and Madison begin the long ride to Abilene to buy Angus cattle. Kelly and Brittany, the nurses hired by the Hendrick family, agreed to watch George and Andrew. 5:05 a.m. Meanwhile, Jim and Betsy wake up. Jim orders black coffee and a cigarette. Betsy makes herself some coffee. She didn't have anything to do today until they left at 12:15 to catch their private jet flight from Midland to Austin. 5:45 a.m. Kyle and Madison had been listening to Motley Crue, and next suddenly switched over to Guns N' Roses, where they played Cold November Rain. 6:05 a.m. At the ranch, Christine wakes up. She gets an apple and a granola bar to eat before boarding her 6:30 bus to Alamo Prep. This was to be her last semester there, seeing as she was moving with her parents in May 1994. 6:30 a.m. JR is having breakfast at Crockett House with Andrew Shelford. I met this young woman. God bless her. Her name is Amanda Emmett. And we're engaged, JR. But she's agreed to wait to marry me until after I get settled back into tech. You're fortunate. Have you told Cousin Joe? JR said. He thinks I'm lonely, gone crazy. Thinks I should play the field while I'm gone. I won't do that. God bless her. She's wise. Dad says a shepherd has to settle down and get married sometime. 7:25 a.m. JR stopped off at the Spirit Club into the chapel to say a prayer. He was hoping to hear from Brad today, but he was very disappointed. 8 a.m. In a government class, in his government class, Dr. Randy Wild continues his lecture on the American congressional system. JR and Sharon take copious notes. 8:20 a.m. Christine arrives at Alamo Prep and walks into the hall and downstairs into the basement to bring out her homework and talk to her algebra tutor. 8:30 a.m. Meanwhile, at the cattle auction, Kyle only has been able to sell to buy one Angus cow. He wants to buy more, but he gives himself until 1 p.m. to decide to buy another. 9:30 a.m. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Jim and Betsy are riding horses. Jim's horse is named Misfit, after his old CB handle, and Betsy's horse is named Schizo, instead of her old CB handle. Inside the house, Elizabeth is watching TV. She lights a cigarette and starts drinking more coffee. Thomas, her grandson, was coming in with his little boy to spend some time with her as Jim and Betsy fly out to Austin. "9:50 a.m. At the ranch, Betsy goes back into the house. She puts away her boots and jeans and finishes packing. Today was her trip to Austin with her husband, Claude, and Becky. They would be there through at least Friday afternoon, possibly. 10:40 a.m. JR walks outside of the geology building and is greeted by Bill Holden and Antonio Gomez. "Hey, man. Your straight-laced friends stood you up," Antonio said. "I was going to invite Kevin McDonald to lunch, but he says he has an appointment for his internship. Let's go over to Sneed Hall and play some video games, JR. You must hang out with us frat boys." 11:30 a.m. JR, Bill, and Antonio are having barbecue chicken, asparagus, mashed potatoes, and German chocolate brownies for dessert. JR talks about his frustration with Brad. "Man, Charlie's right about him. He's an ass," Antonio said. "JR, you'd still be with Karen if it weren't for him." "Yeah, well, guys, she had a falling out with Ken, and that's what ruined things with her. Man, she was cool until Brad came along." 11:45 a.m. Because of some potential changes in weather conditions, the pilot advises Jim that they need to go ahead and leave an hour earlier. So Jim and Betsy, Claude and Becky board the private jet. 11:55 a.m. The chartered jet taxis down the runway and departs Midland, bound for Austin International Airport. 1 p.m. The Hendrick party arrives in the pelting rain in Austin, Texas. A stretch limo sent by the governor security detail picks them up and takes them directly to the Embassy Suites Hotel near downtown Austin. 3:15 p.m. At the Center for Public Affairs, JR is working and is final part of a 4-hour shift. He had just finished interviewing a man in his mid-40s who was studying there, who had ADD and chronic dyslexia. Apparently, he was having problems with his disability dean, Rima Jacobson. So, after the interview, JR makes a quick phone call to Dallas State Representative